Hi, I'm Corey and welcome to Creating with Scraps. This is episode 26 of Flips, Flaps, and Folds, and this is going to be a tri-fold based on the cover of the scrapbook idea book journal that I made. I'm going to show you a couple of variations on how you can make this depending on what your personal needs are or your journaling needs are. But it's a real simple fold that uses some coffee dyed paper or digital image and some scraps. A lot of options with it, and it's a quick and easy one to make. I'm also going to show you a couple tips that I learned along the way. So for example, you can see this particular one. The one I've done here is a single fold, and I put it on the back of cardstock. Or I used a cardstock card to mount it. This one, I used just a single sheet of 8.5 by 11 coffee dyed paper, and I folded it over. So already by its nature, it's double the bulk, so it's a little bit thicker than the other. And you can see when I close it, it's kind of thick, which is fine for some things, but it has a little bit of a gap or a gape because the inside thickness doesn't is too wide for the amount of spine. So I'm going to show you a way that if you're going to be making something thick inside, like if we put a belly band on and such, or if you're going to use any dimensional embellishments at all, it will allow you to alleviate that. We'll just make a little bit thicker spine here. And just a heads up for those of you following the Flips, Flaps, and Folds, I took out yet another signature because it was so chunky. So I will remake this and put it in here. And I'm just going to come back to this book periodically. I've got some more tabs, tags, and tucks that I want to share with you and a couple other Flips, Flaps, and Folds. But I'm going to work on some other projects, and I'll come back to this every once in a while. All right, in order to make this, you need a couple sheets of a sheet of coffee dyed paper and some scraps, or a digital and some scraps. And if you're wanting to do what I did, you'll need one of the Tim Holtz pockets, but you can make these yourself if you don't have the die. And if somebody had gifted you some, like I was, I received some from a nice lady, and it was not the color I needed for my project, so I just used my ink and made it darker. All right, it's 3 folds. I sometimes go a little too quickly, and I apologize for that. So this is 3 folds, and this one is with a piece of folded over coffee dyed paper. You just fold it hot dog and match up the edges. Sorry, I'm reaching around my tripod here to match up those edges. You match up the edges, and then you crease. You can certainly use a scoreboard if you have a scoreboard, but this doesn't require one. All right, so that's what I did for this. That's my first step. And then I did the same thing with this piece, only I didn't fold it over. I did it as a single layer rather than a double layer. Same exact thing, but rather than folding it over this way, I just folded it in thirds. And I folded it in what I call loose thirds. And the reason for that is I wanted to show you how you could make this piece a little bit bigger. And this back piece has another section that goes on top. And if you fold this all the way into thirds, it'll make it too tight in here on the inside edge. So when I fold these, I don't even use a scoreboard as a general rule. I roughly guesstimate. I fold it in thirds and before I crease down. This is my third take on this video, which is why it's already creased. But you can see it doesn't meet the fold line on the inside. It's just shy of it. And that is to make room for the next piece. So I'll fold it over and then I'll crease it down. And then what I did here to get this little bit wider spine, so I folded it over, creased it down, pressed it down, bone folded it down, left myself a little bit of a gap. And then I came in 1/8 of an inch beyond that and made a second crease. And that just gives you that little bit of thicker spine so that if you do add bulk on the inside, your finished project will lay flat regardless of how chunky it is, okay? And I'll do that same thing here so you'll get to see exactly what I'm talking about. So we're going to assume that these pages are the same. One's folded over and one's not. And I'm going to do the same project. And so, sorry, my voice level will probably change. It's a little trickier with this because you've got that extra weight or crease or size. But you're just kind of coming in and folding it roughly in thirds. You want to make sure the top flap is a little bit longer. And you can see here because it's folded, it's got this gap. We can trim that later. But you want to make sure that when you're creasing this, you crease it or you put it down less than 1/3 of the way in, okay? And that's why I laid it down, and less than 1/3 of the way in. And then you're going to fold this. And this, again, here, because of the way I folded it, it's not going to show in the end. So crease it here. And then this will be my cover. But you can see I've got this gap right here, right? Well, I'm going to fold the first one so that it doesn't quite touch in the middle here. And I'll show you in just a minute what I mean. So I'm folding it over, and you can see this piece is longer, so I'm going to trim that in a bit. And you can see they don't meet right here, and I don't want them to. And then I'm going to use my scoreboard simply because I'll be able to see it a little bit better. I'm going to come in and I'm going to make an 1/8 of an inch crease farther away so that I don't have, or maybe I'll even do a 1/4. I'm going to do this one fat. I'm going to go crazy and do this 1/4 of an inch because I have room. And then I'm going to make that crease. So this one, I'll show you here, is even a little bit farther. So again, if I'm going to put lots of ephemera in this, because this is like 6 or 7 pockets, if I put lots of ephemera in there, here, I'll show you. This is a good way to show you. This is an 1/8 of an inch, and that's a 1/4 of an inch. You can see the difference. So if I put lots of ephemera or pictures or notes or things in here, this will allow it to lay flat, even if it's bulky and chunky, okay? And then before I move on, you can see because of the way it was folded, it's not perfectly straight. That's an easy fix. I'll just come in. Can you even see that on my in frame? Okay, good. Come in and trim that down. And then I can do the same thing here, though it's not necessary because it's going to be covered, but I like them to be flat and straight. So trim. All right. All right, then the next step is, yeah, I'll come in and trim this off at the very end. So actually I need to do that sooner rather than later because I am going to put this pocket on there. Yeah, so I would want to make sure that it's the right dimension. I'm going to come off camera for 2 seconds and move this over so it's quick. All right, so I trimmed that down. So now I've got my tri-fold piece, right, with the thicker spine on the right-hand side. Now, the reason I'm not putting the opening at the bottom is because I want to utilize that pocket, and that'll give me my next step. I'm going to get my trimmer. If you are wanting to make a Tim Holtz pocket, you want to bring that in and make sure that it fits. Oh, look, it fits. And that's one of the beauties of folding it 8.5 by 11. You're guaranteed it'll fit. But because I've got this double folded, I want to make a pocket right here. So I've got this pocket on the side, this pocket in the back, the tuck spot on the far right, and I flip this over, and then I've got a tuck spot in the belly band, and then I've got a pocket in the back. So in order to do that, you can certainly just leave this open and have a pocket. But when I have a pocket, I like to take at least a little bit of a divot so that I know it's a pocket. And I don't forget that I put one there. So I'm going to get it roughly in the middle. And use my hole punch, not my hole punch, my circle punch to take a narrow divot. Now remember, I want to make this small because I want my die cut to fit here without having to impede. And actually I can take it a little bit bigger divot because there's plenty of room. So I'll just come back in and take a little bit bigger divot. All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the top here in roughly the center because I want to have that pocket show as well. Okay, I'll open that up and take out that pocket, and I'm going to have this one go a little bit deeper just because it's easy to see. Now I like ink, so I will ink these up so that I can see them. It's easier to ink them before. Okay, sorry, I don't have my inking tool is over here. This is thinner paper, and I like to put, some of you have seen already, but I like to put a piece of heavier cardstock behind it when I ink these edges because it doesn't, it keeps the edges from folding under, and it allows me to get ink on pretty quickly. I guess I could take a divot out of this, but it would have to be the same divot. And put it behind here to get that same effect. Okay. So I can do the same thing with my curved, and I can use that to ink that divot without causing the paper to bend. So you can see there how much easier it is to ink with that behind it. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Ink those. Okay, the rest I can do later on, but that makes it just that much easier. All right, so then I've got my base, and then I would put this piece down here, making sure it fits. Maybe I tuck it right there, and see, I took it a little bit too much, but that's okay. I could trim this down or just leave it like that. It would be just fine. And then I'll put my embellishment here. I've got my pocket. Now I want to do this side. And the way I do that is I get a piece of scrap cardstock that's cut to essentially the same dimension. Look, here we go. This is a piece of that Tracy digital image paper. And in order to make this section here, I am going to simply fold over my scrap piece of paper. And it doesn't, you want about 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches on this side, and then you want the back to be a bit longer. And you can see here, I'm going to tuck it around just like this. Now, if I were to put lace on it like I did on this one, sorry, I'm dropping things like crazy. If I were to put lace on it like I did this one here and this one here, I would sew that next. I would do that before I do anything else. I'd go in with my machine, put my piece of lace or scrap down, and sew. Actually, because I'm not going to put a piece of lace on this, I am going to make this a little bit thicker. And I do this all the time with book page to make the edge stronger, but it works really well with coffee dyed paper too. I just folded it over, and I'm going to glue it down because I'm not going to put a piece of lace on this one for the sake of speed. Fold it over, glue it down, and then honestly I'd probably sew it because I like things sewn, but it doesn't have to be. And for the sake of this one, I'm not going to sew it. Okay. Then this is, all I do with this is tuck it right over the edge of this, and that's going to make my pocket here. And on the back, I am going to trim this off and make a divot right here, but you're not going to glue anything yet, and that's kind of important. Let's see, maybe right around the middle of the flowers. All right, so my end piece is going to look like this. I've made a fold here to make it a little bit sturdier, and then I'm just going to eyeball it. I don't usually do that, but I'm just going to eyeball it and take a divot out of the back. All right, and I'll come in and ink that edge. These pieces, simply because once you put these down, they're a lot harder to ink, so that's why I'm inking them now. A lot of times I'll ink at the end. All right, and then you put this down here. One more step to get the look I have here with the lace belly band, and that's probably the only thing that's not intuitive about this whole project. And did I put the other one? This one, I would do the same thing. Divot here. Oh, heck, I'll just do it. And I just won't ink this one. Okay, so divot here, and I don't want to go too deep because I want there to be room for that Tim Holtz die cut. Divot, and then again, divot. All right, and so you can see it's the same thing, I just don't have a back on it. And then what I would do is I would come in and either put it on the cardstock, and I'll show you that. I've got a sample of cardstock here. Or I would put it directly in my book. So if I was working directly in my journal, once I put this piece here, I would put this directly down and glue it on 3 sides. So I've got the pocket in the back. I've got the same thing, but with just a little bit less bulk. That's essentially the difference between these two. All right, so you can see it both ways here. All right, this next step is to put this lace belly band on before we sew anything. And I just threw the other one on the floor somewhere. But here's the piece I was talking about. Oh, I had already had one ready to go in here. Well, that's okay too. Oh, this was, so you can see here, just a card base like it's a regular greeting card. And the same exact 3 folds like we've got here. Heck, I'll use that one, it's inked. And same thing, I cut the scrap piece so that I have my pocket or my tuck spot and my pocket in the back. And when it's on my trifold, I literally put it around like this. Okay, so we're in that same spot regardless of which one we're using, and we are good to go. The belly band. When I make these belly bands, or when I use these belly bands, what I do is I get a piece of scrap lace, and you can see here, this is just one that I cut off of, I want to say it was a wedding dress, and I just salvaged it, and it's not cut straight and it's not cut evenly. And, oh, sorry. Dogs hear somebody outside. And then I take a piece of torn coffee dyed tissue paper, not tissue paper, tracing paper or vellum, and I put a scrap of it behind. So when I sew this, so obviously that's going to be too long for my belly band here, but I think I did this one the right length. Yeah, okay. So I'll take my lace and I'll fold it over between the lace bits or the flower bits that are on there, and I will lay it on top of a piece of coffee dyed vellum or tracing paper, and I will just stitch it, and I'll stitch the 2 pieces together, and this is what you get, just like this. Now I've separated this one out or made it a little bit longer because this is a little bit wider booklet, and so the flowers fit on here well, close enough. And this one was a little bit shorter, so I put the flowers a little bit closer together. And then the way I do this is this. All right, this second piece on our trifold goes around so that the tuck is on the inside and then the pocket is on the outside. And the reason I make the pocket a little bit wider is so that you have room for this belly band, right? And before you glue or adhere anything down, you simply take your edges of your belly band and you fold them over. And a lot of times will use a piece of tape to make sure that they're flat and they don't catch when I put my card inside. So I'll take just a piece of packing tape. I'll put this where I want it on the front. And let's say I want it right here. Okay. Open it up, put it in, and then I'll use a piece of packing tape to hold it in place. The packing tape down, and then the same thing at the bottom. I'll use a piece of packing tape to hold it in place, and that way when I put the card in and out, I don't have to worry about it catching. So I want to make this straight-ish, lay it down, and tape it. Whoops, sorry about that, I hit the tripod. Tape it into place. All right, and actually I need another piece here because that was longer. And I'll tape that into place. Then, when I'm putting this on my card, when I sew it into place, I don't have to worry about whatever I put in and out catching. All right. And then my last step, I've got my 3 folds. I've got my little insert that I'm putting over the top. I put this over the top, and I go in with my sewing machine, or you can just use glue, and I'll just do a glue because why not? I'll glue this into place, and I'll do it in 2 steps. So I want this here. I'll put glue at the top and glue at the bottom. And I'll fold that down. Make sure it's straight. Okay. And then I'll go over to the back side and I'll do the same thing. And I'm going to put a little bit more on there because I didn't fold it very tightly and it'll stick up. I don't want it to do that. All right. See right here, you can see I didn't fold it tight, and so it would stick up. So I'll just fix that right up. Come in and do that. Okay. Now I'm going to fold this side down and glue it. Do the same thing. I want it to open, so I'll just put glue at the very edge on both the top and the bottom. And I'll come around and fold it back. Okay. Now I have my belly band tuck spot. I have my back pocket. I open it up. I've got my right-hand sided tuck spot. I'll if I were to glue this in the book, I would have my back pocket, and then I would have on my front, so that, oh, I shouldn't have, see, oh, no, because I'm putting it in here. That's okay. Now, on this one, I have a divot because it's two-sided. On this, where I dropped it. On the other one I dropped, I wouldn't have a divot because it's not two-sided. This one, I have a divot here because I'm putting it in this card base, right? The card base is just a little bit bigger. And so I do get that pocket. If I were not putting it in this card base, if I were putting it directly in my book, I just wouldn't take this divot, and because that would be the front of my book. And that's all there is to it. That is the trifold, or trifold pocket with an extension. I don't even know what to call it. And here, let me glue this into the books just for the sake of closure, so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to glue it here, and here, and then I'm going to glue it here and all the way around. Again, I'd probably normally sew it because I like to sew, but you certainly don't have to. And this is, I wanted to show you that you don't have to. But those are the places where you saw the glue are the places I would sew. I'm going to try to get that in somewhat centered. And somewhat centered. Okay. And there it is on a piece of cardstock. Fold it in, and there's our little booklet. And I didn't take the gusset in this one, obviously, which is why you can see it doesn't lay flat. But this one, same idea. I would just come in, take this piece, whoops, it's not the right size. Well, I'd cut this to the right size, come in and do the same thing. Little piece, fold it over, trim it down. And there you go. Thank you very much for watching. And I've got a couple projects coming up soon that I've been working on. I'm going to do 2 different theme journals. And well, actually, theme journals 2 ways, and they can be done with any theme. I'm going to use the forest paper from Stamperia that I told you I would be doing. And on that theme journal, I'm going to use, obviously, different papers and such. But as far as the embellishments and things like that, I'm going to be using things from that kit. I'm going to be cutting up the papers in different ways and using, you know, coffee dyed paper, obviously, and tracing paper and vellum and envelopes, the things that we always use from our staples. But as far as the major embellishments, they're going to be from that Stamperia Forest kit. And then the other theme journal is going to be the complete opposite. It's a daffodil journal, and it's going to be using products from everywhere. I've got things on the internet, and friends have sent me things, and purchased things on Etsy, and all kinds of just variety of daffodil things, including some digitals. And so the idea is you can see that you don't have to have a ton of things and a bunch of different lines to make a really cohesive journal. You can use a kit. Conversely, you can use everything under the sun and whatever memorabilia and ephemera and such that you've got from your life to build a journal. So I thought it might be kind of fun to look at those 2 together. I have also not forgotten, and we will be doing a scrapbook idea book, but it'll be a little bit different than the one that I created last time. And it'll use the 31, 32 different scrap buster ideas that I've got. So we'll create a book together, and we'll do like, I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 in each episode. And we'll put the scrap buster items in as we're building it. And I think my intent with that is to do that starting in May. And the goal would be a page a day in May. But I'll let you know and see how that goes. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, most people that have wanted one have purchased the ink boxes on my Etsy store, and thank you for that. And I believe everybody, or almost everybody, has them. They've all been shipped. I don't have any listed right now that are the 3-hole, but I have a couple other random ones if you're wanting one. And if not, you can always send me a message. And I've made a couple of custom ones, and I can certainly make more. I have the supplies. I just didn't want to make a bunch of boxes and then have them sit here. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and happy creating.